Uh, at the outset, I must compliment Niti Aayog for having undertaken this initiative. And I think I'll take off from where Rajesh left. He spoke about the fourth industrial revolution being driven by biotechnology. And in other words, you could say that if the 20th century was IT century, 21st century would be BT century. So this transition from IT to BT is going to be very fascinating. And some people have already started referring to it as biological century. And the global market already stands at about 1.4 to 1.8 trillion US dollar. And of course, as we prepare ourselves, the entire world prepares itself for the next industrial revolution, as is being said. As far as India is concerned, the difference between the last one and this one is going to be that we are not going to lag behind. You would bear me out, when the last IT revolution happened, we were at least a decade or so back. For example, the television was happening in the United States in 1950s. We got to see first Chitrar in Delhi only by 1970. And by that time, they had graduated over to color TV. Internet happened about a decade later than the rest of the world, so also mobile. But not so now. We are almost at the same level. And we are among the very few countries who have come out with a dedicated biotechnology policy called BioE3. Biotechnology for environment, for employment, for economy, because living in an evidence-based era, we have evidence to say so. And which means we have now not lagged behind, and at the same time, we have also increased the pace of our progress. Like, for example, in 2014, before this government came in, we were just about 10 billion economy, 10 billion US dollar. Today, we stand at 195 point so, and hope to, the projection indicates that we will be 300 billion by 2030. So we can see even the graph pace has increased. We were just a few hundred startups. Today we are more than 11,000 now. Some of them with global potential. And as was being rightly mentioned by Professor Govardhan Das, we have made a mark on the global stage by number of success stories which have attracted the world's attention. Like, for example, we were the first to come out with the DNA vaccine for COVID. A country which was not taken, a nation, a society which was not taken seriously for its healthcare practices, is now being hailed as a leader of the preventive healthcare. And so there's been a tremendous effort on the part of the experts, on the part of our biotechnologists, to actually make this turnover. So almost 360 turnover. We not only produced the first ever vaccine, we also offered it to 30 other countries or so. And now there's a beeline of series of vaccines, including the HPV. We've come out with the first 2 indigenous antibiotics, the nevethromycin, Zainich. One of the first genetic possible remedies for hemophilia. And of course, the CAR T-cell therapy, which was also demonstrated in the recent Bharat event. That was Bharat, what was that? Bharat Innovia. And I was told by the PSA that the president of France got so impressed that he immediately called his personal staff and asked them to understand, because we have come out with an option which is almost 10% cost effective of the option that is available in the West. One cycle of CAR T-cell would cost, I was just trying to understand and learn myself, not less than 4 lakh US dollars, which is quite an amount if you translate it into rupees. So 4 lakh US dollar being, provided in cost, which is almost not only affordable, which is also not very pinching. So we have now qualified as a biotechnology destination, which is not only quality-wise less than any other nation, but also much, much more cost-effective. So which means we have the potential to emerge as a cost-effective global destination for our healthcare practices. And of course, Professor was also mentioning the biofoundries and the biomanufacturing hubs. I think one of the concepts which has been adopted by India, among the first of the few nations to have done that. So And therefore, we are no longer waiting for others to experiment and then learn from their success. So we always waited for their success story to happen. It was successful, then we would adopt it. It was not successful, we would cheer ourselves for having not plunged into this. So it's no longer. So we have also now grown as far as our research initiative and also the courage of conviction in conducting research. We are ready to take a risk and take risks with a certain amount of confidence, because so far we have not been less than successful by our standards and by the standards envisaged by us. So it's important to understand what is the current world scenario and where are we heading for and what would be the future trends. I think when we talk of biotechnology and also in the terms of health sciences, it's going to be very fascinating. We are going to design new proteins which never existed. We thought only God could do that. So not that he has outsourced something to us, the Almighty, but we are at least venturing. And then we are also turning living cells into medicines, into fuels, into food. One of those experiments was conducted by Shubhashu at the International Space Station with a kit which was provided by one of Dr. Rajesh's institutes. So we have already started lessening the burden of the enormous task that the Almighty has been performing for ages and centuries. So it's going to be very fascinating. And we are doing it at both levels, both at the level of in the plants as well as the human beings, and then trying to refine it through the newer tools, namely the AI tools. And therefore, I think when we look at ourselves as global players, or global competitiveness, it's important that we follow global strategies. That's why we have opened up in a big way to the private sector. Mr. Krishnan is one personification of that. We are no longer skeptical about each other, no longer hesitant about each other. We have all these success stories which I told you, the nephromycin, the vaccine, they happened because we were engaging private sector right from day one, and I firmly believe we have to do so. At the end of the day, for any smart businessman, what matters is how much money he's going to make out of it. He may use, a very flowery phraseology, knowledge partner, this partner, that partner, but at the end of the day, with the jeb mein kitne paise aayenge. So we had that, and we are ready to give the market players the liberty also to tell us how best we could adjust them. Like, for example, we took some time even for the nephromycin project because I was also hesitant. I was not very sure whether the Indian big pharma house would be ready to take it up, because this was the first experiment of science. There's so many skeptics. Even if I'm a pharma industry man, I would also be skeptic. What is the potency like? What is the sustainability? Because so far, right from beginning from penicillin, which was known as the queen of drugs in 1947-48, till now, all these salts came from outside. So we had taken a very, a very heroic kind of decision. So we waited, and finally we came across an established multinational, Mumbai-based, who were also looking for something like this, because for the last few years in the competitive market of pharma, India's pharma industry, they were not doing as well as they wished to. So they also wanted kind of a new break, like sometimes the film stars look for when a couple of years go dull. So it was, mutual benefit. So they took it up in a big way. And now it's acknowledged as very potent for resistant respiratory infections. So I think
आप देख रहे हैं लाइव न्यूज 99 राष्ट्र सबसे पहले।